a little high-stress situation like, Malaysia, as you will well know, Kevin, from your racing days back at Shah Alam, and hot, how humid it was. It really is a tough test of the machine out there. So I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted to get the V4 assessed in Malaysia, and then also, of course, the V4. They'll have a direct reference of the V4 in the final round in Ricardo tournament before Fabio and Alex Rins and Jack Miller and co jump on the new bike, I would imagine, on Tuesday 10.
Also will be tested extensively on Monday as well. Of course, the San Marino Grand Prix being followed by a Monday test here. My colleague Kiko Giles is sticking around to bring you all of the news and views on Monday, so keep your eye on MotoGP social media channels and MotoGP.com on Monday for all the latest. And as we discussed this morning, the Yamaha V4 is going to be the central story, with Fabio Quartararo, Alex Rins, Jack Miller all getting their opportunity to ride that V4 on Monday.
Let's go down to Jack then for a pit lane update. Good afternoon, Jack. What's going on?
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody at home. Good afternoon to you guys in the box on this fine Friday afternoon. Just outside Honda, we mentioned this morning the new exhaust system. That's still on both of Joan Mir's bikes, but quite interestingly, Luca Marino tried for the first time this new rear aero this morning, which is very, very much like what we see on the Aprilia, with the big sort of Stegosaurus style wings on the back, and then just in front, or just behind where the rider's feet are, they have the downward face wings as well. He's opted to have that on both of his bikes for this afternoon, so having tried it for the first time this morning, he's clearly a big fan to have it now on both of his machines. We know from both Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi just how much that revised rear aero helps that RSGP under braking. In particular, they were calling out for some more stability when braking, so that was able to provide the RSGP with a little bit more, and clearly Luca felt exactly the same with the RC213B this morning as well. Honda once again throwing plenty of items, and the good news for them is whatever they're throwing at it at the moment is sticking on the bike. Everything that they're bringing is clearly seeming to work.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. In recent weeks, there's been new swing arms, new chassis, a new aero, and now we can see clearly on those pictures of Marino going around this Misano circuit, the Stegosaurus wing now fitted to his rear seat unit. Well, since we last caught up with you, Kev, which was all the way back at round 3 in Austin, over in Texas, Marc Marquez had opened 2025, winning the first 2 sprints and the first 2 Grand Prix. We got a sense straight away of how strong he was going to be on the factory Ducati this year. But since Austin, he's done nothing but winning for fun. From a distance, what have you made of just the brilliance of the 93?
Yeah, he's kind of made it look easy. It was interesting seeing the beginning of the season. He was making a few mistakes when he would be pressured for his first couple laps. Maybe not get that perfect start, but he's kind of got accustomed to not getting the greatest of starts, and having to work his way through 2 or 3 guys and put his head down for a couple laps and check out. Or if he does get a good start, it's just a disappearing act. So I don't know why we thought Mark might get off a Honda and get on a Ducati, get comfortable, and not get back to that dominant self. But a lot of it was coming back from that injury that he's had, and nobody knew exactly where Mark's new 100% might be. Maybe it was only going to be 98 or 97% of the old Mark. Unfortunately, I think he's back as fit, and maybe even 101, 102% Mark now.
24 wins out of 30 so far this season. We've still got 7 rounds remaining. Have you been surprised how easy it has made it look? Have you been surprised at how dominant he has been?
I've normally watched the Saturday race and don't need to watch the Sunday race. So, yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. The ease in which he seems he's doing it, to me, it is amazing. And listening to how explicit the detail is about whenever there's left-handers, he just kills everybody by a 1/10 of a second in every left-hander that there is. It's like, come on, guys, let's work on our laps. But yeah, I mean, I got no idea how he's doing it, and obviously the best in the world can't figure it out either. So congrats to Mark.
Of course, the great riders have so many different facets to what makes them great, but of course we've seen a real disparity between Marc Marquez and the other riders in the GP25 this year. Pecco Bagnaia and Fabio Di Antonio have had their problems. They both spoke of the GP25 not necessarily giving them the front confidence that they want. Is that one of the signs of a great rider, particularly the sign of how great Marc Marquez is, that whatever bike you give him, he's able to just take it and ride it and not put those problems in his head?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Backs up to the Honda, and everybody's like, well, he's winning on the Honda, everybody should be good on it. No, he put the best guys in the world on him, and they were train wrecks on the Honda. And once Mark got hurt, nobody knew exactly what to do, what direction to go. And, you know, it's just a sign of somebody that can sense what's happening before it happens. You know, and that's a rider that's riding with a lot of confidence on a machine and the crew that he's got tons of confidence with.
Of course, there's been two sides to the story inside the Red Garage this year. I mean, as good and as phenomenal as Mark has been, certainly over the last sort of 6 or 7 Grand Prix, and pretty much for the most of 2025 on the other side, Pekka Bagnaia has had a real struggle. I mean, you hear the words nightmare, disaster coming out of his mouth on a frequent basis. How hard do you think it is right now to be Pekka Bagnaia when you have no confidence in your package and then your teammate is just destroying everybody for fun?
You know, that's what we say as racers. The one person you don't want to lose to is your teammate. And when he's just demoralizing the field and you're struggling to get into the top 10 sometimes, yeah, sleepless nights, not wanting to eat too much, you know. The training side of things shouldn't be an issue because I'm like, oh my gosh, that should motivate you like there's no tomorrow. But you know, I'm sure Pecco's diligently working on it the best he can, and they're trying to make steps in the right direction because this season's, I think, pretty much a wash for him. But you know, he's still got a lot of career left.
There's not much talk of whether Cathy have got to try and get Pekka Bagnaia the bike he needs, or whether Pekka Bagnaia has just got to adapt to the bike that he's been given. How did you approach it? Did you take the bike you were given and just adapt yourself to that, or were you someone who liked to change the bike a lot to try and suit what you needed from it?
Fortunate enough that I feel like I was always the top guy at Suzuki. Doug Chandler's probably the teammate that helped the most with the development of the bike in '92, and we both had horrible seasons that year. But it's you know, it's one of those things that you ask for things, but nobody knows exactly how to give that to you. They know we'll try a different chassis, we'll try some more suspension, we'll try adjustments here and there, but there's so many different things that can eventually do what and make the bike feel like you want it to, that you could kind of end up chasing your tail and especially as a rider, you're frustrated, you're not doing what you go out and you put in a really good hard lap, maybe you try, no, I really like that direction, and it's not the right direction. You know, you just overrode the thing and you got a good lap out of it. So, you know, as a rider, you've got to find that pace. You got to be able to tell myself I'm going to test at this certain level, and when the thing starts, when I start really noticing improvements at that pace, then I'll try a little harder. But you can't try too hard when you're testing, because if you do, you end up overriding the thing and getting yourself pointed in maybe an obscure direction.
He is still third in this year's World Championship, is Pecco Bagnaia, but I don't think any of us in this commentary box right now would have been imagining a scenario where his last win was when we all sat together at Austin in Texas, and that was a bit of a present for him as well, when Mark crashed out in what was a pretty convincing 2-second lead at the time. Early on in this practice session, it's a Aprilia home hero, Marco Bezzecchi, who's making the front running, a 1:31.166, which is already a couple of attempts quicker than we saw from Frankie Morbidelli this morning. I know you're a very big fan of Marco Bezzecchi. He's a very big fan of yours, Cody. What have you made of his season? Because it's been so tough for Marco. First time he's been in a factory team, you know how much pressure that puts on your shoulders in terms of delivering results, but also developing a motorcycle. He's had to do a lot of that work without Jorge Martin alongside him, with all of Jorge's injury problems. So he really has actually stood up and counted this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think Bezzecchi's done a great job. You know, there's been some great weekends for him, some right up near the front weekends, and you know, it's interesting to see him starting off near the top, or at the top here in second practice. So I feel like Aprilia at their home Grand Prix, maybe a little, you're not going to have an advantage over Ducati as far as home track goes, but you know, maybe the rider being that close to his house, that close to his training grounds, you know, I feel like him and the entire VR46 team really kind of got a leg up on everybody this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they've done gazillions of laps, haven't they, that lot around this Misano circuit. We were saying this morning, Frankie Morbidelli could have probably done a 1:31.5 with one hand tied behind his back and blindfolded. They know every single millimetre of this track, don't they? They're here on the Ducati Panigale production bike. Like, basically, this is their second home, isn't it? They spend as much time around Misano as what they do in their own house. It's the VR46 Academy squad.
Of course, the VR46 ranch in Tahulia, not a million miles from here. Luca Marini's got into third place, and he's the rider. And generally, whenever you ask the VR46 Canadian riders who tends to win the races on the dirt trackers around the ranch, they generally say Luca Marini is the rider.
Well, isn't he the one Rossi always has for his teammate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Valentino is not going to be picking the slow guys, is he?
Hey, Frankie, you be my teammate. I think Marini's a little faster than you. Yeah, it's interesting to see because I forgot about Marini. He's definitely an academy kid as well, and another one with just so much knowledge of this place. The Marco Simoncelli circuit here at Misano is a great layout. It was entertaining the other direction. I got to ride it in May. We were here for EICMA ride day. But I tell you what, it still opens your eyes. It's big when you try and tip something off in there, no matter how fast you're going.
Yeah, I mean, just talk us through turn 11, the right-hander, Cavone, Kevin. I mean, on a MotoGP bike, these guys are attacking. Kevin, I mean, on a MotoGP bike, these guys are attacking it. Fixed gear, 285 kilometers an hour. When you tip it in, that's the old heart racing, I'd imagine.
You know, it's one of those things where you really, and the easiest way to do it is to run out onto the paint a little bit, and I am still skittish of the paint. I know they've got it to where it's so grippy now you can do whatever you want on the paint, but yeah, I bet heart rate goes up 15 or 20 beats as soon as you start trying to peel it off, especially if that right hand doesn't move. On a MotoGP bike, I don't think you can get through there flat. You know, maybe some of those guys can on new tires, tons of grip, but I don't think it'd be a race-long opportunity. So, what a great layout. They used to be really entertaining, fast laps coming out onto that back straightaway.
Yeah, that Cavone corner, as you mentioned, is one of the most spectacular on the Grand Prix calendar. It's Mark versus Marco in the early part of this practice session here in Misano. It's Mark that leads away on the factory Ducati, 131.026 on the 93, and a 10th and a half here at the moment. Off Bez in second place.
Ferraro has just taken the inline for Yamaha up into fourth place at 131. But check on Fernandez. He's done out most of that in this session, 7 laps and 32.7 for Gustav Fernandez, which is a couple of tenths shy of what he did earlier on today. Of course, Yamaha hoping that the technical gremlins that crept in on that V4 earlier this morning are firmly behind them.
Look at the rear tyre choice there, mate. It's a bit of a mix. We've got Martin or Gustav Fernandez on the V4 Yamaha, Quartararo, Morbidelli, Miller, Bez that we can see on our graphics are out on the soft rear tyre. See Bagnaia and tackle that final corner. That's turn 8, isn't it? It's like, yeah, just from the bridge. They call it turn 7 just from the bridge. It's more of a real high-speed kink, isn't it, through that part of the course.
Crash there, didn't he? Last time he raced here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix last year when he was in third and really chasing down the top two. Renea Bastianini and Jorge Martin, and hey, he might have been right in position to take advantage when they came together right here on the final lap of that Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, and how crucial those points proved to be by the time we got to the finale in Barcelona.
Remember that race? He was so much faster, wasn't he? Just before he crashed out, I think it was only Renea, the race winner, that lapped within a quarter of a second of his best time in that Grand Prix. A big dent in the championship hopes, wasn't it, for Bagnaia? He comes back into factory Ducati garage, 6th place, a mid 131 from Pecco.
That's a fun thing when you start stringing together really fast laps late in the race, midway on. You just have to realize that everything's not as good as it was in the beginning, and you got to be able to find that fine line before everything goes wrong. And Pecco was pushing there, trying to get to the leaders, and just didn't quite get it pulled off that day. But and as a rider, what an accomplishment! You're like, man, it feels like it's happening easy, and so you just keep pushing, and it sure is easy to make that mistake.
I guess a little bit like we saw from Mark at the start of the season. You know, he was so confident, so in the zone with the bike. We saw the mistake in Austin. There were further mistakes in Jerez when he was well placed, and another mistake in Silverstone. Just how difficult is that when you're a rider like Mark that's only got one thought, and that's to just, you know, he's the ultimate killer, isn't he? He always goes for the jugular, doesn't he, as we say, does Mark, just to rein himself back in after those early mistakes. It was almost like there was a switch in his head that went, well, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm stopping this, but I'm going to get to a point where I'm still going to be fast enough to decimate the field.
Late in the race, when you stick it in the gravel, it's hard to come back to the paddock and walk into the box. The guy said, "Didn't you read the board?" I said, "Plus not 6 feet. That was 6 seconds. That's the length of the front straightaway of the Reds. Come on, you know it's." But as a rider, you try and slow down, and you can start giving up 1 or 2 seconds a lap pretty easy, and then you may not be able to find that rhythm back. If somebody does start reeling you in a little bit, you know, now the pressure's on, then it's really easy to make that mistake. So a lot of us find that it's just better to try and stay in that rhythm. Yeah, it might be just a little bit risky, but sure is a lot easier.
Well, as Alex, his brother, found out to his cost last weekend, didn't he? Getting a bit overconfident when he's leading the sprint. That is all happening, folks, at not far shy of 300 kilometers an hour. That's why these are the best of the best, the elite of the elite. Even the former world champion sat alongside is shaking his head in awe of that shot.
Using paint at that much lean angle at that speed.
Been an excellent practice session so far for Mark. That opening 7-lap stint unmatched to 1:31.026. So Luca Marini's looking really, really strong once again, isn't he? He was inside the top 6 this morning on that rapidly improving factory Honda. Luca Marini was saying in the pre-event press conference yesterday that maybe we might have to wait until 2026 before we see Honda constantly threatening the top 3. Well, might be in about 48 hours' time.
This morning session he was 6th. He's currently 5th. Once again, well into the mid 131s. The circuit that, as we've already discussed, he will have so much knowledge at, fast from the get-go earlier on today. And it's a pretty varied top 10 at the moment. We've got a Ducati fastest from an Aprilia, from a Ducati, from a Yamaha, from a Honda inside your top 5, with the first of the KTMs, Enea Bastianini, who currently sits 7th. All 5 manufacturers represented in the top 7.
Pretty cool, Kevin, to see the world champion back in action, doing what he does best. I mean, it's a nightmare sort of start of 2025, or the first half of 2025 was just could not have got any worse for Jorge, physically wise, injury wise. Just so cool to see him getting back to his best.
It really is. And talk about some bad luck, you know, having an easy-ish crash in Qatar and then getting run over. It's seeing the sweat on his brow there makes you realize just how hot it is here, and what a physical thing these MotoGP bikes are to ride. But to see Jorge Martin back and fit and smiling, and you know, I think taking the right approach to it. You know, it's difficult enough to get physically fit and get back on the thing. Then you got to get your head back up to speed. You got to get tuned into going 280, 290, and tipping off into that right-hander. Talk about timing and vision. And, I mean, there's so many things that have to be right besides your physical capabilities at that point that you know, you've got to take small steps.
And all this, of course, whilst trying to learn a new bike as well, of course, having moved across from the Ducati to the Aprilia in many respects. Martin's pre-season started in Brno.
The one he got 13 laps on the off-season testing. It's never easy on a new bike, a new team, new staff. You know, I'm sure you've got tons of confidence in the guys, but you know, you're always maybe second-guessing things for a little bit until you get some real confidence in the guys and maybe string together a couple of really good results or even a race win.
Well, it sounded like he was second-guessing himself to the point where he was actually threatening to leave Aprilia at one stage. You know that he was sort of being tempted by Honda. I mean, always said none of us can really understand what it was like to be lying in that hospital bed in Doha, just staring at the ceiling, thoughts to yourself, a pretty dark place. So you can perhaps understand why he was, you know, thinking, is the Aprilia for me? Do I just need to reset, go somewhere else to start a game? It was a real tough period for him.
Yeah, as a rider that's just won a championship, not to get any testing, to get hurt initially, and the amount of downtime you got, you can really get into your own head, that's for sure. Did I see Quartararo wearing pearls? Has he been doing that for a while?
Last weekend, and said he simply forgot to take it off, and clearly worked for him last weekend, so he started to persist with it. A bit of a fashion trendsetter in the MotoGP paddock is Fabio.
There he is.
Is that what you call that? fashion trends.
Perhaps someone younger than us.
Yeah, exactly.
At least he can pull it off. I don't think I could get away with that one at all. Quartararo, there to see how he was pushing that Yamaha snaking left and right on that braking zone into the first corner. It's right at the moment, fourth fastest with a 1:31.427. It's just over 4 tenths back of Mark as we stand right now.
Really still some life in the inline four just yet, even if it does appear as his crash she's reached the ceiling of his performance, and of course he's done so much to almost carry Yamaha on his back this season as Fabio Quartararo, and it's understandable that I guess that at times the frustration has shone through. Of course, agonisingly missing out on a victory at the British Grand Prix earlier this season when the ride height device jammed down, but some of the performances from Fabio Quartararo this season, even as a Hall of Fame yourself, must have taken your breath away.
Oh, absolutely. And to do it at Silverstone, I mean, one of the fast tracks out there, it looked like easily going to walk away and win the thing, and to have that mechanical problem really hurts. Confidence that it gives the rider, confidence it gives the team. Everybody's working at another level now, and for Fabio, that was, I'm sure, a tough one to swallow.
It's a rider who's done so much work behind the scenes to get Ducati into their current dominant position. It's Michele Pirro. Of course, because of Ducati's success, they are no longer allowed wildcards, are they? Which has seen Michele very much take a backseat in terms of the development of the GP25. Of course, he'll be very busy working behind the scenes a little on the new 850cc Ducati engine, which will be part of the new rules in 2027. On the theme of Yamahas, we know that World Superbike champion Toprak Razgatlioglu is moving over to MotoGP next year. And favourite, a showman, ultra aggressive on the bike, and so fast, of course, as well. What do you think about Toprak coming over? I think a lot of people thought he might wait one more year to come over when we're on the Pirellis, but I take it, he's going to give it a go next year.
Yeah, I think next year is going to be one of those seasons that we're not going to really know what to expect. You spend a lot of time really trying to develop something new, and you know it's going to have to change displacement the following season. You're going to have a completely different grip package underneath you. There's so many things that it might be one of those seasons that when everything finishes up this year, that's the way it's all going to be. Everybody's going to try and just maintain. Maybe nobody really puts a lot of effort into developing the old bike any further. So it might be a great opportunity for Toprak to get in, get on something. And we absolutely know by watching him ride a superbike, he has the skill set to handle a motorcycle at whatever speed it's going, whatever brand it is. And I think Toprak is going to step in, and I think he'll have a pretty quick impact on this new class that he's pursuing.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to seeing the world champion possibly come over as the World Superbike champion once again, as he's well on course to successfully defend the crown in the factory BMW team. Will its place there be taken by Miguel Oliveira, the prima Yamaha rider whose nose is out of business here at MotoGP next year? Oliveira had a pretty tough start to this Misano Grand Prix. 2 crashes this morning, which is a very Miguel-like, wasn't it? Turn 16 and turn 3. He's on the 21st place as he looks to build back some confidence.
In many respects, the current standings in this session kind of tell the Yamaha story of 2025. Fabio Quartararo up in 4th on a 1:31.4. None of the other Yamahas are in the 31s. Rins 14th on a 32.0. With Miller and Oliveira on mid-32s, 20th, 21st. And of course, Augusto Fernandez, who's testing out the V4 in a competitive capacity for the first time, 22nd at the moment. We follow Pedro Acosta through the final corner. He's kind of stepped up, hasn't he, in recent rounds as one of the main threats to Marc Marquez and the Ducati squad. It looks as if there's been something of a mental reset for Pedro Acosta, who was perhaps letting his frustration boil over earlier on in the season. Perhaps having got that under control, we're now seeing Acosta really put that KTM back in the podium battle where he will feel that he belongs.
Yeah, Pedro doing a great job. Young rider, just getting over aggressive, frustrated with maybe not having the best bike out there, not being able to do what he wants to do. You know, I can relate to that 100%. So looks like the KTM's making some improvements. The whole group of them are moving up. Maverick's been fast a few times. Bastianini's been on the podium. it's a work in progress, and it really looks like, this seems like to me they're making some headway.
Yeah, Marathon, has just moved himself up inside the top 10. Every lap is a tough lap right now as far as the number 12 is concerned. Still has very limited mobility in that left shoulder after that crash in that wet Q2 session at the Sachsenring in Germany. Albert's feeling that he won't be at his peak physical best until we head into 2026 and the pre-season, which will head before our first Grand Prix at the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. Let's go down to pit lane then and get some latest thoughts. We get a bit of, well, these two are the ultimate trash talkers, aren't they? Trash talking on the bike at the moment, aren't they? Bez and Bagnaia with elbow to elbow action in pit lane. And while we're on the subject of Pecco, let's get an update from Jack in pit lane.
Yeah, well, it's good to see him joking around. You certainly wouldn't have seen him do that in Hungary and Barcelona on Friday when he was having his struggle. And that's maybe coupled with the fact that we've seen him switch back to the slightly shorter, old version style Öhlins front forks. You might know from the past couple of years that Öhlins introduced a slightly longer front fork that basically everybody on the grid has been using. Pecco, the only anomaly over recent years when he's had so much success. During the past couple of Grand Prix, when they've been desperately trying to find some kind of a solution to this front-end feel issue that has dogged him throughout the vast part of this year, they had gone to these longer front forks, but on Sunday morning in Barcelona, they've reverted back to what he knows, what he's been successful with before, and I think this is just all about the process that Davide Tardozzi spoke about, and giving Pecco a bike that at least he knows and understands. They can try work on him first, get that confidence back, try and get his head right, and then from there they'll look to try and find some answers going into 2026. But clearly, by going back to what he knows, it's giving him just a little bit of confidence back, which is good to see for Bagnaia.
Yeah, Jack. Tried everything and tried so many different setups. They moved that factory, Ducati, left, right, up, down, you name it. There's probably not a lot left in the truck as far as Bagnaia's got to try and find some much needed front end confidence. Of course, so many years, if you're on a factory Ducati or any Ducati, all the other riders will tell you that is where Pecco can make the time. That's where he's stronger than anybody else in the braking zones. This could be a good lap actually coming in from Bagnaia as he tips it left through turn 15. And of course, maybe for the top four he was through the first part of this lap. We're tracking through the Misano corner after their elbow bashing, joking of course, as they left pit lane. It's Bez just behind Bagnaia. Good session this as far as the factory Aprilia team are concerned, with Bezzecchi up there in third, not too far out of what will be the all-important top 10 shortly is Martin. Bagnaia just rolling out of it and allowing Bez to sweep on through. Marquez is, as you can see on the timing tab, still leads this session on 31.026. It's still our benchmark time.
Look at the top 10 along, you can see plenty of VR46 influence in Gian Antonio second for the VR40 team, Bezzecchi third, Academy graduate Morbidelli fourth, of course, is both. Got Bagnaia sixth from the Academy, Marini 10th. And while Anea Bastianini isn't a VR46 Academy graduate, he perhaps is as good at this circuit as any of those that are. He's up in 9th place at the moment on the Tech 3 KTM in a weekend where, of course, he's having to work with a brand new crew chief. I mean, how difficult as a rider is that to have to manage, and just how central is the crew chief to how a rider approaches every single part of their weekend?
Yeah, I only made one crew chief change, and that was from after 91. I got Stuart Shenton in 1992, and yeah, you listen to him, you come in, you give him your ideas, he translates that, he tells you, okay, here's what the bike should be doing different. I didn't want to know what changes he made. I wanted to know what I should be able, what should I expect from the motorcycle. And Stuart was really good at translating that for me. So, yeah, working with somebody new it always seems like it takes a while. I mean, we did 10 or 15,000 kilometers worth of testing at the end of '92, starting '93. And that's why I think we were as good as we were most of the '93 season, because we had experienced everything. We'd gone certain places and had hot, slick tracks. We had cold tracks. We had damp tracks. We had low grip, no grip, high grip. You know, there were so many different things that we had to work through, and Stuart was really good at interpreting that for me.
Yeah, of course, Stuart, I think still very, very active over in the British Superbike paddock as crew chief to Rory Skinner, who had some success last weekend at Donington Park. I believe VR46 had a bit of success in your neck of the woods last weekend. He was on the podium in Austin, wasn't he?
He did. He finished second. Yeah. I didn't turn it on, but Texas turned on the rain for him, and I think it just created an element where nobody knew what was happening from 1 hour to the next. And 46 can accommodate just about any track conditions out there. So I'm sure he did a great job. I didn't get to go to the track. I was on my way back from Idaho, so
probably not too many people that have had podiums in Austin on 2 and 4 wheels.
Yeah.
For a pretty exclusive club of one,
I was going to say, it might be him.
Yeah.
As good as he is over 22 laps, whatever it is, the Grand Prix of the Americas, clearly over a 6-hour race, although of course he won't drive the entirety of the 6 hours. The Lone Star Le Mans, as I believe it's called, the World Endurance Championship race over there, I think, Circuit of the Americas. Valentino Rossi showing just exactly how good he is. Still, even now, of course, Valentino here as part of the Hall of Fame introduction and unveiling yesterday here in Rimini.
As you can see there, Luca Marini wiping the beads of sweat off his forehead. It is really hot out here this afternoon. It feels like this is good prep for Mandalika and Sepang coming up in a few weeks' time as we head off on our Asia tour. There is the latest Honda upgrades. There is the rear aero, the Stegosaurus spins on the back, and then the new exhaust. Honda were never going to take this line down, Kevin, this barren run that they've had since Mark left them a couple of years ago. Well, they were struggling even when Mark was there towards the tail end of his career with HRC. But they're coming. They are coming back, aren't they? Close to where they want to be and need to be for a sleeping giant like them.
You know, when I raced, Honda was always kind of the team. They always had the fastest bike in the straight line, and I was always convinced that if I could have gotten on one, I could have made it go around the corners. But it seems like, from rumors, that it's quite the difficult place to work, because when Mark was there, it was like ride it like Mark rides it until you ride it faster than Mark rides it. We're not making any changes. Your input is null and void. So. And as a rider, you need what makes you confident, and sometimes it's not what Mark was riding. So Honda builds a great product. There's no doubt that they were going to that they were just going to stand around and take losing easily. But HRC is a brand that you know is going to be working its way back to the top.
Interesting to watch that animated discussion that Marc Marquez was having there with his company. Marco Rigamonti, Gigi Dall'Igna was listening intently, and certainly looked on the track map as if Marc Marquez was pointing up the 3 rights through the third sector, turns 11, 12 and 13 as an area he needs to improve upon, and clearly an area that perhaps some of the other Ducati riders have a slight edge on him through there.
Well, it was Alex and the 2 fast rights that completed the lap in Barcelona, where he was a 10th or 2 quicker than Mark throughout that weekend. He's always talked about it, hasn't he? He's improved, and the right-handers has Mark, but he says Alex certainly has his measure in those particular parts of circuits. What have you made of Alex? I mean, last weekend was awesome. I mean, to sort of resist that race-long onslaught from Mark, I mean, that's going to be a pretty uncomfortable position when you're just sitting on your pit board, when you're on your absolute limit, and you can just see plus 0.93. But he handled it impeccably. I mean, for many of us, it was probably one of the rides of Alex's life last weekend.
You know, it's pressure like you just can't ever even think about expressing to somebody, but it's your brother. You've been racing that guy since you were his brother. One more of those opportunities where having it being your brother back there. Not that he's going to give you the race, not going to let you win, but he's not going to do anything silly. So, Alex is, we know he's a proven talent. His consistency hasn't quite shown yet, but last weekend was definitely a confidence builder for him.
I think you could sense that, speaking to him in the pre-event press conference yesterday. It was just almost a psychological boost for Alex. It was the 6th Marquez 1-2 in MotoGP. The first time, though, that it's been Alex that has beaten Mark in what was a straight fight. And you've got to see, we saw from the pitch that turned 10 how hard Mark was pushing, how much on the limit he was to try and put that pressure on Alex. That was not a gimme from Mark at all.
Well, Marc Marquez said himself to you, didn't he, on Sunday after the Grand Prix? He said, I put in a perfect ride. There he is, pointing at the right-handers through 11, 12 and 13, particularly Cabone, turn 11 is the area he needs to improve. He said, I rode a perfect race, and I still couldn't beat my younger brother.
Just watching that replay of getting through 10, it doesn't look like the bike's quite finishing the corner like he wants it to. It looks like it was still turned quite a bit when he got to the paint, and the bars shook just a little bit. So I'm sure that's may have been what Mark was talking to Gigi about.
I'm sure Gigi's got to fit somewhere in his seemingly endless box of tricks that roll out of Borgo Panigale. Are those, there's the switch back to that shorter stroke front Ohlins 4 going to be the magic one fix that Pecco Bagnaia is hoping for? This has been much more like the Bagnaia of the last 3 years so far this weekend. He's troubling the top 6, which we certainly weren't saying throughout much of the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend and last time out in Barcelona. As soon as we say that, that was a massive shake of frustration.
He's turning the air blue there through turn 1 as he probably doesn't get the response he wanted from the Ducati as he brakes for turn 1, and so much of Pecco Bagnaia's struggles this season are focused on exactly that. It's getting the bike stopped, braking, not just on angle, but braking full stop. He just doesn't have the front end feeling confidence to really drop that Ducati on its side.
Piero Taramassa from Michelin, is it in the background? It is, yeah, it's Piero Taramassa, Michelin Motorsport Manager. He's very much involved in these Marquez debriefs and Bagnaia debriefs at the moment inside the factory Ducati garage, just quietly going on about his business as he always does. Is Marini, which is sitting down the factory Honda through turn 3. The VR46 graduate now, Marco Bezzecchi in 4th place. It was very much like the calm before the storm, doesn't it? Before we go into time attack mode. Top 10 as always at the end of this session will be directly through to Q2. Pedro Acosta, as we can see, and maybe to get in an early banker lap here. He's out on fresh, soft rear rubber. Now through turn 2. Over the line goes Bezzecchi. No improvement on that lap from the Italian.
I wonder if that's what Bagnaia was up to, was he just put a set of new tires on. He went into the first turn and blew the first corner. That's what he was just frustrated about. But yeah, we're getting kind of late in this session. That could very easily be what it was.
Riders at the moment outside the top 10 to climb up. Bastianini 11th ahead of his teammate from Tech 3, Maverick Vinales. Brad Binder, the 4th of the KTMs in terms of the order, and Acosta up the order in 9th. He's 13th from Agura, Mir, Rins, Martin 17th from Aldeguer, Miller, Zarco, Oliveira, Fernandez and Chandra. It is super close, as it so often is in MotoGP, but a circuit such as this really does see the gap really close up down the field. Less than half a second covers the top 10 down to Raul Fernandez on the first of the Trackhouse Aprilias, as Luca Marini now climbs a place now up into 5th spot. And a second, as near as makes a difference, takes you all the way down to Jorge Martin in 17th place on a 1:32.0.
Trackhouse has done a good job. They started off the season really strong and then just kind of faded into the distance. But as we look here, both bikes sneaking up on the top 10 anyway, at least in with a shot to maybe get up there.
Yeah, Raul Fernandez 10th at the moment. Agura, his teammate, in 14th place. Good to see Agura stand back inside the top 6 last weekend in Barcelona. First visit on a Sunday for top 6 since that brilliant debut in Buriram. Just Casey Stoner there, obviously observing out on circuit, maybe just offering some thoughts on Luca Marini's progress. That's PP, Christian Pipelin, on the left-hand side of your picture. Yeah, there he goes, right on cue. Luca Marini's crew chief, of course, for so many years. He was part of the Ducati family. Moved over with Jack Miller to KTM before he joined Marini in the factory Honda squad. And I guess when Casey Stoner talks to you and you listen, thoughts, you listen.
Anything that he's learned about motorcycle racing, anything he hasn't learned isn't worth learning really from his point of view. Such a ferocious talent on board a MotoGP bike. Retiring at a rather early stage, didn't he, of course, when he still had so much to offer, but clearly decided that he'd gotten everything out of MotoGP that he wanted, and that MotoGP wasn't for him anymore when he dramatically retired back in 2012.
Go to Ducati when Ducatis weren't really all that rideable, and when they weren't the favorite thing in the paddock.
Yeah, that 2007 World Championship when he had the Rocket Ship 800cc engine. And forget that Qatar Grand Prix round 1, when he just pulled the paint off the Honda and Yamaha down the start, really straight. In Doha, back then with Mark. He's coming out of turn 14. So he's coming out of turn 10. Close-up shot there. Lucas coming through the slow Caro corner, but now he's going through the high speed. Turn 11, Cavone. Was on the curves on the inside there, was he? I just wonder whether you were right, Kevin. The line as he ran on the curves there, it may be just unsettling the bike too much for him. Really, there he was on a much more, shall we say, conservative line, if you can call Cavone to 80 kilometres conservative.
Yeah, anytime your knee's almost on the ground at 280, it's no conserving anything there. You're clenching on that seat like no tomorrow.
Vinales, new soft front and rear rubber for the Tech 3 KTM rider. He's making it work in the opening half of his current lap. Currently in 12th place. This could be a lap, but it should be a lap if he carries it on through. Here is Top Gun now. Through turn 15 he goes, just one more left-hander for him to negotiate. This is the Misano corner. Should be a top 10 lap this from Maverick. Confirmation on your screens that he's out on the new set of Michelin tyres. Over the line he goes, just misses out, up to 11 to the 131.540.
Solid background of the S you could see on that graphic indicates it's a new tyre. If it's a clear background, it means he's on tyres that he's already ran at some stage through the weekend. So he's in 11th place now. The Tech 3 KTM essentially swapping positions. Perhaps the surprise, looking at who's in the top 10 and who isn't, is the fact that Luca Marini's up in 5th, but by comparison, Bagnaia and Johan Zarco down in 17th and 19th respectively at the moment. And Marini's got the best part of half a second over Mir, and 3/4 of a second over Zarco, who was down in 22nd this morning and hasn't made too much progress up the order today.
He's frustrated there, Vinales, because he made a meal of turn 4, didn't he? Going into rear. That's why there was the big shake of the head from the Spaniard. He was just building up for another hot lap on that KTM.
It's funny, you start seeing shaking his head well before you ever get to the corner. But as a rider, you know, I'm about 10 mile an hour too fast. This is not going to work. If I try and make it work, I'm going to end up on scratching up some paint. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to know when...
For Vinales, I kind of feel the Maverick injuries, of course, are part of the game, but in the first part of the season when a lot of the KTMs were struggling, Maverick was clearly their leading line, getting the best out of what at that time seemed a pretty average RC16, and just at the time of the year when KTM started to find some improvements with some really strong upgrades, Maverick got injured and he's nowhere near fully fit. He said that really struggling to stop the bike in left-hand corners, struggling to get himself tucked into the slipstream position on the straight, which of course hindered him badly in Barcelona. I was talking to a couple of people last night in Riccioli who were saying that he can't really raise his left arm above his shoulder, so there's a real lack of movement and mobility. So he's actually doing a pretty solid job at the moment just to be out there, to be fair to him.
Pedro Acosta snuck up another spot or two. He's in P6 now. Having done 19 laps, he and Marquez are the only ones even slow. Oh no, there's Bezzecchi's done 19 laps as well. So sticking together a bunch of laps, trying to get as best prepared as they can for this time attack.
I mean, he's fastest mark at the moment, but clearly we can see second visit into the factory Ducati garage. He's having to work for it. He's having to work hard. That factory Ducati underneath him, he's not as compliant as he's hoping at the moment here in Misano. But as always, he always finds a way, doesn't he? To find a way around, riding around issues as we pick up Bastianini now going through Cavone. What a corner. What's the corner?
From the relative chaos to the relative calm inside the VR46 box of Frankie Morbidelli, who sits and watch like that for the first 10 minutes of pre-practice 1 this morning. It's really not impacted Morbidelli's weekend too much. Of course, we saw him on a sprint podium for the very first time here last year. Of course, a circuit that has got so many fond memories for Frankie. A maiden MotoGP victory here back in 2020. Of course, that's part of that VR46 Academy, a special place for Frankie, and he's currently part of a VR46 2-3. They are the nearest challengers right now to Marc Marquez.
I read somewhere that Jack Miller thought or said it'll be our luck the new V4 will beat us this weekend. And looking where Miller and Oliveira are, Fernandez is pretty doggone close.
It's pretty encouraging at the moment for the new Yamaha V4. More than respectable lap times being set by Fernandez this morning. A 1:32.537. It's actually a 1:32.571.
Bastianini and that left-hander just a bit wide to look over his shoulder to make sure he wasn't coming back down in front of somebody. Probably a little bit frustrating for him. Let's see how he gets into turn 10 here.
Just briefly rolls the front of the flipped it right.
It is a brand new soft rear tyre that Bastianini's got on here, but really no immediate jump up the order for the Beast, who's come from further back than 12th in MotoGP sessions here to finish on the podium. Of course, his rookie season in 2021 when he took a pair of podiums.
Yeah, in his last 7 Grand Prix here across Moto2 and MotoGP, he's been on the podium in the lot at Bagnaia. This is a very happy hunting ground as far as he's concerned. Clearly he's found his form on that KTM. He made a good point last weekend actually post Barcelona, where he said spent too much time at the start of the season to the midpoint of the season trying to get the KTM to suit his style, when it actually should have been the complete opposite. As soon as he sort of went, well, it's not working, I've got to adapt my riding style now to suit the KTM. Well, he started to make big progress, hasn't he, towards the front where we know the Beast belongs. What about Bagnaia at the moment, 8th, which does put him in that danger zone towards the wrong end of the top 10 at the moment, on course to pick up 1 spot. Brand new fresh Michelin rubber underneath Pecco at the moment as he powers out of the final corner. Just check his progress, and over the line he goes. Well, it was better than 7th, it was 5th, a 1:31.281. Pecco said yesterday his objective for the weekend in the Sprint and the Grand Prix was a top 5. Felt like that was a realistic goal, and well, he's been bang on the money so far with that prediction.
Bastianini looks like he's getting more of a tune out of his KTM on this next lap. He's on target, and was, until he came through the 3rd sector and lost the 2.5 to get himself into the top 10. So potentially he's made a mess of one of those right-handers coming back towards the gates. I think we're going to see potentially what went wrong.
Didn't quite get enough of the curve there. I think it's going to struggle to finish. Oh, yep. The 2 factory failures were out on track together too. Be interesting to see if they're going to work together to try and maybe pull each other along and sneak further up into the top 10.
And there's Xavi Palasin, who has taken over crew chief duties now for Enea Bastianini. Of course, a split behind the scenes in Barcelona and last weekend with his long-standing crew chief, Albi Giraviola.
The stat that Bagnaia's made in that 3rd sector, where of course the VR46 Academy riders are so strong. He turned a near enough 10th per second deficit into a 10.5 advantage here, and it's Pecco Bagnaia going to set the first sub 1:31 of the day, as Quartararo is also threatening further back. Bagnaia down to a 1:30.794. He puts a 1/4 of a second into teammate Marc Marquez.
The team are going to go now. We should have put those old forks in about 3 or 4 rounds ago as he finds the first 1:30. Now that is much more like it, isn't it?
Did you find out half a second there? I mean, yeah, there was a bike right in front of him. Maybe a little bit of draft down the back, but man, that is a big step.
Just great to see his name.
And here comes his teammate.
Yeah, Pecco singing, you know what, that 1:30.7 was pretty cool, that's pretty fast, and here comes Marc, despite all of his issues with some of these fast right-handers at the back end of this lap. Look at this, he's almost 3/10 clear. Pecco at the moment, really making that soft rear tyre work for him. 15, he goes 1 corner left then, 493, just drops that left leg, gets it all stable on the brakes, powers out the final corner now. This could be 1:30.4, is it maybe? It is a 1:30.480. And we have the factory Ducatis, 1st and 2nd here in Misano, but for how much longer?
Morbidelli and Bezzecchi, who are together on the racetrack, are also improving. Binder's gone up into the top 10 in 7th, so he's now the top KTM, which we haven't really said so far today. He and Bezzecchi are on identical lap times now, 6th and 7th. Morbidelli, the nearest challenger to the factory Ducatis. Could he now split them on this next lap? Watch where he goes. He closes the gap, but he stays behind. It's Bezzecchi that splits the factory Ducatis. The Aprilia now up into 2nd, and he's only a 10.5 behind Marc Marquez.
Martin then down to 131.20. It's been evident clearly since he made his return from injury a few races ago that Jorge Martin struggled at the moment on the factory at Aprilia are all time attack related. Can't get anything out of it, a soft rear tyre at the moment as Acosta's rapid in sector 2. More fresh rubber underneath the factory KTM star. Barcelona winner Alex comes across the line. He's still in, well, he just climbed up 6 places to 4th. Now, will he feel a 130.838 as already good enough to get him directly through the Q2?
Mir has now joined Marini in the top 10. Honda's 9th and 10th. Let's see what Acosta's been able to do. And the answer is a quarter of a second slower than what Marquez was doing through there. So that's potentially going to put him somewhere near Bagnaia, Alex Marquez and Morbidelli. But Acosta needs to get a lap on the board here. He's currently outside the top 10 at the moment. Only one KTM is in the top 10. That is Brad Binder. Pedro Acosta now set to change that. He climbs from 11th up to 6th.
Vinales was briefly in 11th. He's been pushed back down to 12th place. Would be a massive bonus for Vinales to get himself directly through to Q2. That's what he needs right now in his physical state. Is an extra 15 minutes on track in Q1. This from Mir, 10th for the moment. Full commitment on the factory Honda going through Cabode now, sort of continually decreasing speed through the right-handers through 12, 13, now 14, one of the slowest corners on the circuit. First gear there through the Caro turn. Zarco's just gone up to 14 for the 131.499. Right to the danger zone right now is Mir looking to rectify that. He was flirting with the green there on the outside of turn 16. I think he's going to be okay. 4th quickest to 1:30.819. Mir up to 4th. What a job.
So we've got world champions 1st, 3rd and 4th. Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia and Joan Mir. Quartararo 9th. And of course the reigning world champion here, Jorge Martin, down in 18th, and had to draw attention once again to the wild card on the V4. Augusto Fernandez, he's in 18th place, has now become 19th place. He's just pumped in a 1:31.678. He's found the best part of a second than what he did earlier on today. And Augusto Fernandez, once again, only 1.1 seconds off Marc Marquez on a bike that's still very early in its development.
He's ahead of 2 other Yamahas. Rins and Oliveira, who'll probably say, just give us the V4 right now, we'll take it, thank you very much.
Antonio on his Ducati is trying to lift himself up from some relatively choppy waters in 8th place. Certainly wouldn't say he's safe. He needs to be in the 130s, I think, to be anything like comfortable of a place in the top 10. Gian Antonio is the first rider who isn't. He's on a 131.1, and Zarco using the 49 bike just ahead of him to potentially replace Gian Antonio in that top 8. It's the rider behind this we should be watching. Zarco across the line, and he does go up ahead of Digia into 8th place.
Yeah, the 1:31.208 we saw from Martin, which briefly put him inside the top 10. He'd actually exceeded track limits on that lap. That was scrubbed off. That's the reason why he's now dumped back into 18th place, 1:31.6. So more work to do then for Martin. Down back to Jack.
Yeah, you could just see it's really brilliantly highlighted on Johan Zarco's bike with him running the white colour scheme. He's got that brand new rear aero on as well, which he didn't have this morning. Joan Mir's got it on as well. He didn't have it on this morning, so clearly it's a big step for Honda for 3 of the 4 riders to have it bolted on.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It's clearly working with both Mir and Zarco as it stands right now. Still just under 7 minutes remaining in the session. A lot can change, but those 2 Hondas at the moment going into Q2. With Marco Bezzecchi looking back to his factory, a brilliant teammate Martin. It's through the left-hander of 6. Build up the speed now at 300 kilometers an hour as you come under the bridge now. Through the fast kick of 7. Hard now on the brakes into turn 8. This is the point of a weekend where Martin has had his struggles. Just funded with it. This has been a tactic here from the Aprilia with Marco Bezzecchi already looking well secure to go through the Q2 with that 1:30.6. Just to give Martin
the Roman Emperor, there he is.
Yeah.
Max Biaggi. I saw him at the Hall of Fame dinner last night.
4 times 250cc world champion and a Aprilia ambassador, of course, these days. It's Max Biaggi. It's like a who's who of Grand Prix racing in Remini last night, wasn't it? Such a star-studded cast. The Hall of Fame launch. Pecco Bagnaia, who was briefly our leader in this session, still keeping himself inside that top 3. This will just be such a boost, such a shot in the arm for the under siege Italian. As Martin getting in on the slipstream of his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. At the moment, this will be the lap where we're going to find out what Martin's got for the temperature now in that soft rear tyre. Didn't follow anybody around Misano. Might as well be one of the 46 Academy guys. Marco Bezzecchi, he knows his way around this 4.2 kilometre circuit very, very well.
Bagnaia, although an improvement is unlikely on this lap, it's another sub 31, a 1:30.978, but Bagnaia stays in third. We're right on board then with Jorge Martin, and both of the Aprilias are improving, although the first sector only complete. Martin, this is the area where, of course, you need to make the biggest improvement still on board this factory Aprilia. Nothing wrong with his race pace there. It looked like he was a little bit deep there into Quetch at turn 8, and you can see perhaps a few metres opening up between Bezzecchi and Martin. Martin closes then back in then under braking for Tramonto, and is Bezzecchi potentially going to tow his teammate into the top 10?
Yeah, in his 5 previous starts this year for Martin, only once on his return in Brno has he featured in a Q2 session. Through the fast rights we go then into the final 5 minutes of this session. Yellow flags are out in the opening sector. That's not going to have any impact on Bez and Martin on their current lap. That yellow flag is still out though, as they come over the line very, very shortly. It certainly will have a big impact. That yellow flag is still out as well as Bastianini tips into the first corner. This is lap gone.
It's Acosta Fernandez who unfortunately has damaged one of those V4 Yamahas after one of them broke down this morning. Bezzecchi improves in second place, and Martin now up into 6th place. He has found that crucial 1:30.
Yeah, Martin knows Bezza Piadina in Rimini tonight, doesn't he? That's for sure.
Yeah, it's at least a Piadina, I think that is.
This is the crutch for Augusto Fernandez then, tipping it left through 2. So easy to do that. So many right-handers in the second half of the lap leading on to the main straight. And then the left of 2 is generally where you see riders struggle. Fernandez then will not be improving, it would appear, on 19th place.
You just pick up a little bit too much curve maybe on the inside there on that new V4. Nevertheless, it has been a pretty dramatic debut for the V4 after it stopped this morning on Augusto Fernandez. Clearly, though, it's got some serious potential, hasn't it? 1:31.6 from Augusto.
Yeah, El Diablo needs to find him a spot, at least, to be comfortable. Sitting in 11th, and Fabio's going to come out and string together a couple of good laps so he can get 2 in.
Just did a 1:31.2 on his last lap just before he sat up there, and that's a crash for Joan Mir into Tramonto corner. It looks like he's gone down through the right of 9 before he's arrived at 10, because you can see how far he's ended up towards the wall. Mir currently in 5th, but a painful end to his session.
He's lost that straight up and down, hasn't he? The way how far he's gone. Well, yeah.
It's coming our way.
Looks like he was a little bit offline there, maybe a little bit wider onto a slightly dirty part of the circuit, but he's gone a long, long way through there. Through the long lap he's gone. Looks like he's taking a bit of a whack on the right arm. Yeah, nasty one that for Joan Mir. At the moment, 5th. How damaging that could be to his prospects of being in Q2.
He was on a personal best. He just set his best second sector and was only half a tenth away from what Marquez was doing. So Mir was going well prior to that crash. His place in the top 10, though, relatively secure at the moment. Those yellow flags have now cleared, but Mir on a 30.8 should be reasonably secure. We've got 4 riders at the moment on 30.8. Mir, Martin, Morbidelli and Acosta. Zarco and Di Gianantonio on low 31s. As we take a look at the factory Aprilia riders, and this Jorge Martin potentially thanking his teammate. It is a little bit of a doff of the cap to Bezzecchi. Thank you for helping me potentially reach Q2.
Yeah, I thought that was the strategy that was at play there.
That corner that Mir crashed in, such an easy corner to get into deep, because you try and get in, and you feel like you're going so slow when you get to the center. Okay, I'm going to be a little more aggressive this time, so an easy mistake to make. And late in this session, good to see Mir up and looking to be okay anyway.
Yeah, let's hope that Mir's going to be relatively okay. It's a smart move that by Aprilia. It's a no-brainer really, because what we've seen, Jorge Martin over the last couple of Grand Prix has had podium bags. We've got yellow flags out late on here.
It could cost Quartararo, although he's lost time anyway in the second sector. We're into the heart of the fourth sector now with Bastianini. It was the yellows in turn 15. It looks like a painful one for Raul Fernandez.
It's a painful one for now. Both times he's been in full time attack mode. At turn 2 he got the yellow flag for the Fernandez crash when he was flying, and now he's caught the yellow flag late on for Raul Fernandez. Turn 15 is a right old get off here in Misano. second gear. Got 130 odd kilometres going through there. So Fabio Quartararo's rolled out of it.
You've got 20 seconds, Fabio, to get yourself to the finish line to start one more lap. You could still potentially rescue a Q2 place out of this.
Looks like Morbidelli's going to be saying the yellow flags have cleared, so Morbidelli now going through turn 14, the bottom gear right-hander. Already looking pretty set to go directly through the Q2 is Frankie, but just making sure there is no late dramas. More yellow flags now out in the first sector. This won't impact Morbidelli, which could be a top 3 lap here. Jack Miller's gone down on the Pramac Yamaha. Morbidelli does indeed go into third place. He's the first rider to take the checker flag in this session. Frankie's best work, a 130.673.
It's been a costly day for Pramac, hasn't it? 3 crashes now for their 2 riders. Quartararo was ahead of Miller, incidentally, on the racetrack, and has set his best first sector so far.
Costly day all round for Yamaha, isn't it? With a crash as well on the new V4 for Augusto Fernandez. It's from Vinales. This would be something special by Maverick. Well, just look how much time he lost in that third sector. Just hasn't got the upper body strength to muscle that KTM around through those fast rides.
Gian Antonio might need this final sector because Quartararo is taking aim at him further back. Can Dici get ahead of Zarco? He does, and that could be crucial. He's now into the 130s, and it looks like a battle of the 2 Frenchmen, with Marini also potentially in the contention. It looks like the 3 of them are fighting for 1 Q2 place here.
Marino's 14th at the moment, nothing really going for him as he's halfway through the final sector. It's almost been a permanent fixture all day, hasn't he, inside the top 6. That's Marini. He's about to come over the line now.
Should be enough this.
Over the line he goes. Yeah, that's more like it. 7th. Better late than never as far as the Italian is concerned. He slots in behind Joan Mir. Fabio Quartararo has missed out. Quartararo is in Q1 at best. Fabio will be 12th at the end of that session, just 1 spot behind fellow Frenchman Zarco. I think that's it. That's your lots. Marquez, yeah, Marini's tops. Yeah, he knows that was a big 130.848.
Honda's 6th and 7th.
Game changer for your weekend to get through directly into Q2.
6, 7, and 11. And I mean, just missing it, Zarco. That helped him out with some confidence there late in the session because he was definitely a threat to sneak into the top 10.
It really was. We thought Enea Bastianini was going to be one of those contenders for the top 10. Those late yellow flags really did for the beast. Deary me, what's going to be going to the Marino Enea right now? 18th fastest. Well, we know he'll just be airing his frustration about all the late drama. He'll feel like there was a top 10 lap in him, but 18th for Enea. Well, he was fastest this morning, was Morbidelli. He's top 3 this afternoon once again. Bezzecchi, who I'm sure is going to be sending the receipt to Jorge Martin, sending in the bill for the tow around this Misano circuit. Bez second, quite rightly.
You think cheese only on that Piedina? Or is it going to be meat and cheese?
There won't be pineapple, that's for sure, not in this part of the world. Alex Marquez, we know, is a bit of he loves a pineapple pizza, and he just watches all the Italian riders around him, but he says that turn their nose up in disgust. Martin then did get into Q2 with a little bit of help from his friend Marco Bezzecchi. It's a smart move by the factory of Trinity. As you mentioned, Martin's race pace in the last 3 or 4 Grand Prix has been good enough for the podium. So getting into the Q2 helped him get a good grid position.
In 93, we're at Mugello, and Barros is having a hard time figuring the place out. So we're late in qualifying. I said, "Come on, get behind me. I'll give you a tow." And he took.
So let's go down to pit lane. A great day from the factory of Trinity. Both Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin directly into Q2. Let's get the thoughts of Massimo Arriva, Jack.
Yeah, Aprilia teamwork at show there, Massimo. A great plan, and it paid off for both Jorge and Marco.
Yeah, a teamwork for a team, good team spirit. Marco was great, really. I'm very happy. What does he do on the bike so close? Very happy today, but it's just Friday, you know.
Yeah, what does it say about Marco's confidence right now that he can almost sacrifice it?
It's not going to be easy. It's a home race for him, but you see how much we are happy for Jorge to be there. So, but Marco seems to be, let's say, quite well spotted.
Great job, well done.
Teamwork makes the dream work, and Aprilia can be dreaming about a home Grand Prix victory here in Misano. Yeah, you can hear Jorge Martini's pumped with that lap. Yeah, Massimo Riva straight over to Martin. We're seeing Jorge acknowledge the help he got from Marco Bezzecchi. Contrasting scenes inside the factory Yamaha garage, I think it's fair to say. Fabio Quartararo can't even bother to flip up the visor, frustrating from the Frenchman in 12th place. And here comes Bez, quite rightly being lauded by the factory Aprilia team. Bravo, yeah, that's the message to Bez. Let's not forget as well, when they were Moto3 rivals back in the day, and also through Moto2, Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi didn't get on. They never used to see eye to eye.
Certainly do now, and I don't think we would have been expecting to be talking up a harmonious team spirit within Aprilia 3 or 4 months ago, but that's certainly what we have now. Bezzecchi, the nearest challenger to Marc Marquez today, and in many respects for Jorge Martin, his biggest hurdle of the weekend, his biggest shortfall has been overcome. So often it was single lap pace. Of course, the last couple of Grand Prix for Martin, qualified 17th in Hungary, 18th in Barcelona. He was only 14th on the grid in Austria. He'll be starting at the very least inside the top 12 this weekend.
At the end of it all, 93 is in P1 once again.
One thing's changed, all they stay the same.
130.480 for Mark.
10th and a half better than the Aprilia, about 10th and a half better than the next one, whole 10th faster than that. Yeah, it just, and still looked like he was still working on the bike in the garage, pointing at points on the map, looking like the thing wasn't turning like he wanted it to. But Marc Marquez in the day, top of the sheets.
Yeah, and he did his best lap on lap 22 of 28. So clearly Mark himself did not get a clean lap in with all the late yellow flag drama. So he could have probably found another 2 or 3 tenths at the end of that session. Valentino Rossi, the doctor, with a big smile inside the VR46 Racing.
Marc Marquez, though, fastest of all today, a 10th and a half clear of Marco Bezzecchi. VR46 influence across that top 10 with Morbidelli third, Bagnaia fourth, Alex Marquez fifth from the 2 factory Hondas of Juan Mir and Luca Marini. Jorge Marquez. At least one KTM makes Q2 in 9th ahead of Fabio Ciccone. Today, only 12th. But Gusto Fernandez and Jack Miller had their crashes on Yamaha's. Of course, Gusto Fernandez on that V4 did take 19th ahead, and Alex Rins and Miguel Oliveira on their inline fours.
Once again, our thanks, as always, to one of the best to ever do it, 1993 world champion Kevin Schwantz, for his company with us this afternoon. Kev, great to see you. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and once again, congratulations on your Hall of Fame moment last night. Richly deserved.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to a great race weekend. Enjoy, everybody.
Thanks as always then to Kevin Schwantz. He's going to be sticking around throughout the remainder of this San Marino Grand Prix weekend. Let's hopefully we'll have his company in the commentary box very, very soon. Always fascinating.
This afternoon, 1:30.643. Improved upon ever so slightly on his final run, got down to a 30.627 in the end, as you can see on run 4 when another soft rear tyre was thrown in.
Morbidelli was one of the few riders that did actually set their best time on their last lap with all the late yellow flag drama. He was doing high to mid 131s in the early part of that session, and it was a 1:30.673. Better late than never from Franklin. It got him into the top 3.
Whereas Pekka Bagnaia's fastest lap did come a little bit earlier in the session, 3 laps from the end of the session. You'll see it shortly on run 4. He did a lot of work on the medium-medium combination, and as you can see, it was on his 4th of 5 runs that Bagnaia set his 1:30.7. Steps in the right direction for him.
Sector 1 was Morbidelli territory. He took it from factory Honda rider Juan Mir with Marc Marquez a strong third.
Well, the second sector is largely a straight line, so no surprise to see two of the KTMs figuring well through there.
Troubles with fast right-handers. What troubles? Marc Marquez quickest in sector 3. Adam Marini and Bezzecchi.
Other problems, he fixed them. Marco Bezzecchi quickest in the 4th sector, ahead of Bagnaia and Marc Marquez, but it wasn't enough for Bez to beat the 93 today.
So Marc Marquez already a 5 times MotoGP winner here at the Misano World Circuit. Marco Simoncelli straight away here as the on day one. After Frankie Morbidelli led FP1, it's the factory Ducati star that takes us into Sprint Saturday. Top of the pile once again. How many times have we said this so far in 2025? Marc Marquez.